Okay.
Enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm.
Power.
Power.
There you go.
Welcome to the internet, live from the Marriott Library at the University of Utah. This is the Red Line Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Fielder, and these are my co-hosts,
Connor Dunstan and
Kyle Holland. Today we're going to continue our discussion about transit hubs, but this time we're moving away from the big stations at the heart of transit networks to focus in on how neighborhood hubs can be made better. All of this after the news.
The MBTA has continued its streak of egregious incompetence this week, with two separate incidents occurring on the T. Earlier in the week, an Orange Line train caught fire, forcing passengers to escape onto active tracks. It has also been reported that one woman repeatedly jumped off the bridge and swam to shore, refusing help from a nearby fireboat. The T also experienced a second major incident this week. A runaway train on the Red Line nearly ran through a station. Both of these incidents call into question the quality of the leadership at the MBTA and put on full display the deferred maintenance and safety issues plaguing many major northeastern transit agencies today.
Deferred maintenance is like the funniest phrase ever.
I know. It's just like, oh, our thing needs fixed. We'll do it later.
Let's just not fix it.
Isn't that what Union Pacific does
Yes.
with their tracks?
100%. I
Okay.
mean, you've seen that crap that they have
They
laid
just
down.
drive slower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll just go slower. It's fine.
And if it derails, max will only kill 2 people.
I mean, have you ever heard of Placemaking?
Care to elaborate?
So,
Sounds French.
it's in Quebec, like in the province of Quebec.
Okay.
So Lac-Mégantic was real cute, charming Quebecois town, like very much like unspoiled by the ravages of cars. Cute downtown, but one day this driver for, I don't remember what railroad, but it was an oil train, was a few miles up the track, and the locomotive caught on fire during the night, and he hadn't set enough handbrakes. And then the locomotive caught on fire, so it stopped powering the brakes because the firemen put out the fire and turned off the locomotive. So it just started slowly rolling downhill and rolling faster and faster and faster and faster until it hit a curve in Lac-Mégantic where the rails were not that great because deferred maintenance. And so it fell over and blew up like 100 people in the town.
I think I've seen pictures of this.
Yeah, it's a pretty famous disaster, actually.
I see why.
So, the Red Line train could have killed 100 people if it hadn't been for luck, is my point.
Let's try to not repeat historic and preventable accidents.
That's a funny idea.
Yeah.
Who even thinks of these things? And I say streak of incompetence because at the MBTA, this is a common occurrence. Like a month ago, there was a derailment on the Green Line. It happens all the time. The T is just real bad at making sure their crap doesn't go to crap.
Is that because of budget?
No. The MBTA is probably like the second or third best funded agency in the country. They just kind of, like everyone else in America, use it super inefficiently.
Oh, do better, please.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
In other New England transit news, a CT Transit bus caught on fire this week. Can anyone guess what type of bus it was?
Maybe it was a diesel bus that
No, a lithium-ion battery bus caught fire, forcing all 12 of Connecticut's electric buses off the road for the time being. Who could have predicted this?
Well, that probably hurt service.
Yes.
Big time.
Yeah, almost like we should leverage charging in motion technology so we can go with more stable batteries instead of lithium-ion ones that, catch on fire all the time.
Wow, maybe if we're going to put batteries in buses, we shouldn't put the largest, heaviest, and most dangerous type in them.
Maybe we should just have trolley buses.
What a novel concept. Who would have thought of that? In more positive news, however, now that we've gotten the two horrible disasters out of the way, New York's MTA has announced that they will bring wireless service to all subway tunnels and add Wi-Fi service to all the above-ground stations that don't already have Wi-Fi. This represents a quantum leap forward for passenger comfort on MTA trains and is an effort that should certainly be replicated everywhere. So they're going to add cell service in all subway tunnels.
Brilliant.
Seems smart.
Good idea, right?
Very good idea.
Yep.
Yeah. This has been the news.
Wait, just one thing.
Hmm?
Didn't they open a new station in Salt Lake?
They did. So back before we say this has been the news.
Yeah, you can do the editing wizardry. Also in positive news this week, the Utah Transit Authority has finally opened its 6th South station on the red, green, and blue lines,
Bringing increased service to downtown.
bringing increased accessibility to our growing downtown fringe. That's what the mayor said.
Located 1,200 feet south of the existing courthouse station and servicing the exact same lines. This planned infill station promises to make it marginally more convenient for residents of new apartment buildings to use the rail service.
Singular new apartment building.
I think
But wait
there's,
until they knock down more stuff to build more.
You see, and that's what
Yeah.
I'm hoping they're gonna do. But they did just build like a new parking lot there, so I don't know what the deal is.
Yeah. As usual, we're using tracks as a development tool more than a transportation tool.
Now that's not true. That's the S line, not tracks.
This particular station.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, but the S line. This can be another supplemental news thing. The S line breaking all previous ridership records the last few months due to finally actually getting the development that was proposed when it was built. You know those giant new apartments next to Fairmont Station? Reportedly, those are driving ridership. There was 1,927 average boardings last month, which is about 400 more than ever happened before.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah.
So,
I don't doubt that that's the source of the ridership. Those are the, actually mixed-use developments.
Yeah. I remember the days when that was just a defunct furniture warehouse.
yeah, I don't, because I'm pretty new here. But I guess congratulations to the S-Line for being the first UTA service to recover from the pandemic.
And then
Eat
some.
that, UVX.
Now it just needs to ride in the street like a streetcar.
Yes, and maybe...
It rides on a pedestrian
Hey,
street.
it rides in the street for 1 minute next to State Street, sort of.
That section should be completely pedestrianized.
No, it shouldn't, because you
Yes,
have to be able to park conveniently in front of your townhouse that has a garage in the back.
Are we talking about the ones by Winco?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so this has been the news, trademark. So, last week we discussed transit hubs, and we focused in on the large system-defining stations that form the heart of most good transit networks.
Like Penn Station and Grand Central.
And, let's see, I guess you would say South Station in Boston, the beautiful Salt Lake Central in Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake Central.
Quote, unquote.
In air quotes.
Yeah.
We did talk about that one.
Yeah, also update about Salt Lake Central. Amtrak does go there. Greyhound no longer goes there.
You nearly scared me.
Yeah, no, Greyhound is no longer operating out of Salt Lake Central.
But don't they have the massive building?
Yeah, well, UTA was charging them a marginal amount of rent, and the new owners of Greyhound want to do everything to pinch pennies and make money except provide decent service to their customers.
So I believe they're now going to be running it like the Salt Lake Express, where they just dump you wherever.
Yeah, no, they're just running it from the airport now, next to airport
the Salt Lake
tracks.
Express.
Yeah.
Great. I'm sure that the improved quality of service will attract more ridership and revenue, allowing them to expand their network.
You say the funny things, funny man. Very funny. Yeah, but this week we're going to talk about neighborhood mini hubs, mobility hubs, whatever transit buzzwords you want to use for them. So, what is a mobility hub?
A mobility hub is a place in a transit or transportation network where two or more routes and several means of transportation come together.
Yeah, so this can be as simple as the 21 and the 200 meet on the corner of State and 21st. That is technically a mobility hub because you can transfer between buses.
Any other mode of transportation is frowned upon.
I mean, you can walk marginally, and there's a green bike station 1,000 yards away.
Okay, cool. So that's a minimal
Basic,
example.
yes.
Just the meeting of two buses on a bus grid.
Yes, but ideally, a mobility hub is, two buses on a bus grid, but it should include other mobility options, gasp, like bike share, e-scooters, and most importantly of all, lay walking.
Safe and pleasant walking at that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ideally.
Not get hit by car walking.
That's illegal.
You're picky. You're picky.
I know. Come on, dude.
Mobility hubs are generally in lower density residential areas and are often at the center of small enclave of neighborhood amenities like parks and small-scale commercial units.
Yeah, and it should be noted that when I say lower, like emphasis on the ER, lower density residential areas.
Ideally, we're talking missing middle
Like
residential areas.
501s.
Or even that, yeah.
Like, I'm just referring to not skyscrapers here when I say lower density, because a skyscraper, it normally has, like, a big station within walking distance, theoretically.
Except Salt Lake.
Well, it's the city center station.
Yeah, okay.
Much mobility, very wow.
Yeah. One of our favorite examples of these is 9th East and 9th South in Salt Lake City, which
Also known
is...
as 9th and 9th because we have cutesy names.
Yes, it's a great name. We like the name. It combines two relatively high-frequency bus routes, an intersection of moderately safe bike routes, soon to be much improved with the introduction of a new bike path, a bike share station, and space for e-scooters. And most importantly,
It's a place.
it is a place.
There's businesses and houses there.
There are
and
many
people
businesses
want to go there.
and many houses, and many people, and much walking, and even public seating.
Yeah, is that legal?
No.
Yes.
And not to mention, it's next to one of the biggest parks we have.
Yeah, and this is, I think, 9th and 9th in Salt Lake City is probably the best example of like a quote mobility hub unquote that we really have, because there are safe bike routes-ish, mostly. There is a bike share station, there are e-scooters, there's good bus stops, and it's real easy transfer from the 9 to the 209. There's a good deal of placemaking that's gone on there. It's very much a cultural amenities hub for, most of Salt Lake City that isn't close to Sugar Hub or Sugar Hub, Sugar House or downtown. And yeah, it's got a park.
Yeah.
A big grande park.
Like we mentioned earlier, like the minimum for something vaguely resembling a mobility hub is just like a couple of transit routes and some bike and walking things. But what really makes a mobility hub is the place.
Yes. And we cannot stress this enough, because I know we talked a metric crap ton about this last time, but the placemaking aspect of a big hub, like the fact that it's somewhere people want to go to all of its own, is sometimes almost as important as like having good connections.
Indeed, because public transit does not exist in a void to just like move people back and forth for no good reason.
The poors.
It exists to bring them to a place.
That's a novel concept if I have ever heard one.
I know, right? So we should have places.
Yep.
So mobility hubs tend to kind of form pretty naturally around rapid transit stations especially.
If they are allowed to do so.
Yeah, caveat. And this is because A, higher density development is generally allowed around rapid transit stations, and
B, most reasonable transit agencies put high priority on using their bus services to funnel riders onto faster and higher capacity services.
yeah, so like you kind of gotta, if you like at the point where you've invested into a rapid transit system, whether it be heavy rail, light rail,
Actual metro.
cable car, whatever, you want to be able to take full advantage of that by using those stations as the center point of your system.
So your mobility hubs progress naturally from that. You start with a rapid transit station and some zoning amendments. You add in your bus routes. Suddenly you have lots of quality transit in one place.
Right,
and you start making it into a place. Bam, mobility.
And it doesn't even have to be on purpose all the time. Like, very much despite itself, like Central Point is a very big mobility hub, despite the fact that it is in the middle of a godforsaken car heck hole of garbage.
Full of concrete everywhere you
full
look.
of concrete, real dangerous road next to it. Yeah.
It's got a high density development. It has a
across the
RC
street.
Willie.
It has a high density of surface parking spaces next to it.
Yeah, high density development. Genius. Yes, the rapid transit stations are especially good at this, and you can look at pretty much anywhere in the country except probably most Western American light rail stations. And
Freeway stations.
DART, Dallas Area Rapid Transit. I'm sorry, I had something in my throat.
Anyways, where were we?
Yeah, so some of the benefits of mobility hubs for transit systems are that they create nodes of connectivity in residential neighborhoods, making it easy for local residents to access travel in multiple directions. Because, you know, people have to go, sometimes they have to go east, and sometimes they have to go south.
Spooky.
I know.
They also make for safer transfer points between multiple lines because nobody wants to change buses on a strode.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Here's where example of the 21 and the 200 buses comes into play. That is a disgusting interchange of two state highway department surface highways. You do not want to exist there if at all possible.
No, which is why everyone just rides the bus to tracks instead of transferring to the 200, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
in all reasonable.
On the contrary, 9th and 9th is a comfortable and pleasant place to be for any reason.
Now, I don't think I've ever transferred bus. No, I have transferred buses there, and it was fine.
Yeah.
I think I've transferred once before.
Yeah. So, yeah, they are also very important for convenience because when you have a hub in your neighborhood, transit and alternate modes of mobility are much easier and more convenient to use. So a person living there is more likely to use them. Because oftentimes there is no bus route just in front of your house, right?
There usually isn't, and there shouldn't be in lower density developments.
Yeah, there's not always going to be a bus route or a train or a tram stop or whatever right in front of your house. So if there's a conspicuous place where all these things, where there's bike share there, there's e-bikes there, and I know there's 2 bus routes there, that makes it a lot more compelling to just go to said place and then go on to transit or go on to bicycle or scooter or your local bodega or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, and regarding e-scooters, mobility hubs create a centralized parking area, so you don't have the phenomenon of the litter scooter.
Yeah, because everybody in cities likes to really just moan and groan about litter scooters, so it's good if you have a place where they're designated to be parked.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which they did up at the university recently.
Yes, they have.
They did do that.
And those are good.
It took a token amount of tape, and now the problem's mostly solved.
It is mostly solved. So...
Hold up, I'm loading insightful comments.
Okay.
Mobility hubs are also really good, like we mentioned earlier, for the overall development and character of a neighborhood. I know that's
don't say those words. Those are spooky.
Yeah, I know that's a spooky and often used by NIMBYs word, character. But the thing you can do with a mobility hub is you start with your base transit service, ideally a rapid transit station, or maybe it's just an intersection of 2 bus routes. And then
preferably relatively frequent, 15 minutes.
Yes.
Anyone who calls 15 minutes a high frequency, close quote, bus route is lying. That is not a high frequency. That is the minimum.
That is minimum.
It is the literal bare minimum for what qualifies as quote-unquote frequent service.
Okay, go ahead, though.
But anyways, you start with that baseline transit connectivity, and then you encourage development through zoning policies and whatever other magic cities do to encourage development. And you can slowly turn just a barren field of house into a place that has a central location with businesses, with transportation, with options. That's a pleasant place to be, and you can just build up the whole neighborhood around that.
Yes.
That sounds perfect.
I know, it sounds nice, right?
Sounds like the dream.
This was what Magna downtown was supposed to be, but then that did not happen. That'll be something I'll talk about someday, because that, the amount of, placemaking plans that people love to make and then just not do is funny to me.
The funny thing about plans, if you want the outcome, you have to do the thing.
And you have to pay for it.
Well, you don't necessarily have to pay for it. You can just ask private developers to make it for you.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can just like sell them the land and you
That's
make
basically
money.
how that works. You say, here is this land. It is zoned so that you can make something that vaguely matches what we want. Have fun. Make money.
But at what cost?
So the city, some paperwork. And also figuring out how to get the land. And utilities.
I'm hoping they do it right.
Yeah.
But you have to pay for utilities anyways, so the city's not losing money on those.
Pay for utilities? That's a joke, because we're never going to make enough property taxes to do for that.
Oh yeah, speaking of property taxes,
Yeah.
building these mobility hubs, these kind of mini downtowns for neighborhoods
Cha-ching.
that are places, put a lot of property value in one place.
I've been
Yes.
And they reinforce that property value by making it a place that people want to go to and will go to.
Well,
Sugar house.
it's the same reason that land in downtown areas costs so much, because when there's a bunch of amenities present, people want to build crap there.
You're telling
Yeah.
me people want to go where the things are?
Yes, and not just rot away in a sea of endless generic single-family houses.
Make place where people want to go, make profit.
Make profit. Big profit.
Yes.
Many profit.
It's also a good opportunity to consider a number of urbanism principles, like allowing denser development near this new
Boo.
core you're building, etc., etc. It's a great launching point for really urbanizing an entire community.
C'est vrai.
Do
Yes.
urbanists love Sugar House then?
No.
No?
I mean, most of it is a parking lot.
Well, if they ever fix 2100 South
Oh, then I'm sure that'll be
and
wonderful.
put the train up at 11th East,
But
Yeah.
anyway, so what makes a good mobility hub? Unsurprisingly, it's many of the same things that makes a good central station. Number one,
connectivity.
A mobility hub should be a place where multiple lines, and like actually decent ones at that,
Yeah.
and modes of transit meet.
these
Alright.
transit lines form the spine of a mobility hub, and they allow residents nearby to move seamlessly and easily from one node of the transit network to another.
And they solve a problem that plagues a number of supposedly urbanist developments that certain government organizations keep coming up with that
Are
promise to be urbanist, people-focused places, and yet are burdened by having a like 1-to-1 parking space to person ratio.
Are you referring to the point?
A point, not saying which.
He's making a point.
About
Yeah.
a point.
About, not the point, obviously, the point being the future of development in Harriman.
And it's
Mm.
fantastic.
Oh yeah, in every way, and doesn't have like more parking spaces than people or anything. No.
Of course, but that spine connectivity of quality transit routes, quality bike routes, and quality places to walk free you from an obligation to provide a crap ton of car parking and set you loose to actually develop.
I am free.
I concur.
Yeah, I agree. A mobility hub should also be connected to the neighborhood around it. When that means bike infrastructure.
And by bike infrastructure, we mean real infrastructure,
Not
real
paint.
concrete infrastructure.
Not
Get it?
paint.
Get it?
Paint
Concrete.
is not infrastructure.
No, it's not. There should be real
Paint is
concrete,
paint.
concrete. on
Paint
the
is
ground.
paint. Paint is not infrastructure. This is true.
Mm.
That also means, most importantly of all, good pedestrian amenities. The neighborhoods around these places need to be very accessible from these places if they're going to work.
Absolutely. And this is something we have easy up on the old Salt Lake City grid, where we have an obscene amount of street connectivity and a number of excess roads and streets and through roads. So we kind of get this connectivity by default, and we may even take it for granted. But a lot of newer suburban developments just throw...
They have spaghetti.
Yeah, they just throw the concept of walking anywhere out the window, and will take a lot more work to get to the point where they're compatible.
Yes. I mean, with the exception of a few.
With the exception of a few.
Like Daybreak, actually good example of this, because I recently read a thing. Apparently 85% of school children in Daybreak, get this, walk or bike to school.
good.
85.
That's how it should be.
That's
It
good,
should
right?
be like 98.
Yeah.
That's really good. So despite Daybreak's like abject car dependency,
Well-
they've done a great job of within their little boxed community
You can walk.
allowing people to move around freely.
And that's about all you can do, but you can walk.
Yeah, well, that's the first good news I've heard about Daybreak ever.
It's a first step. I mean, and they did do the missing middle thing, okay. I sure wish they would have put, like, a grocery store. But the missing middle housing there is decent.
I'm glad they made a massive pond in a desert.
Yeah, okay, that I object to. But that's a whole different thing. And also, transit hubs should be accessible by as many modes of transportation as possible. That means rideshare, car share, bike share, regular bikes, walking, scootering, rolling, even driving to an extent in suburban areas. Park and rides should be a subsidiary part of transit hubs, but in suburban areas they should exist.
In these more suburban transit hubs that we're building in areas that were previously pretty thoroughly car dependent, it's okay to accommodate motor vehicles. Like 1 lane each direction, make it safe, make it traffic calmed, you're golden.
And preferably, like, not surface parking. There is so much better use of land. Put it under the
Yes,
station.
if you insist on building quantities of parking, hide it underground so it doesn't like literally destroy the fabric of your community.
Well, yeah, and I mean, the best use of land next to the station is a very tall building with lots of people in it and commercial on the ground floor. You don't want to even remove that like 100 feet if you can avoid it.
Absolutely.
The perfect mixed use then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Preferably like at least 60 stories, but, you know. Connectivity also means that meaningful connections should be made to nearby neighborhoods, allowing residents easy access to other hubs.
Oh, you mean like we could have a bike route that just is like continuous all the way to the other thing and doesn't like twist and turn on going unsafe roads 50 bajillion times?
That's an interesting idea. I wonder if anyone's thought of that before.
The Netherlands.
Copenhagen.
Copenhagen.
Paris. Yeah.
Well, another thing that makes a good central station is proximity.
Yeah, they should be hubs. They should be centers of placemaking, community development, economic activity, and social life.
Begone the suburban park and ride. Do not put a parking lot between your transit users and their destination.
Yeah.
There is no reason to do this. It
No.
is actively harmful to the area you're building in.
I am of agreement with this. Yeah, so a great example of this actually is, like we were talking about, like the Union Station neighborhood. And I know that that's, you know, a central station. We talked about that last episode. But the way that the sort of center of gravity of that neighborhood has shifted towards the transit hub, very good. That's a center of social life. There's sports venues, there's music, there's bars, there's diners, there's grocery stores, and, you know, it's a place to go. 9th and 9th is the same way.
Yeah, you ride the bus to 9th and 9th, you get off, and you walk like 20 feet to a shop.
Yeah. And you can go out for the night and then take the bus home.
Spooky.
Heathen! Unto heck goeth thou.
And if for some reason you're out till 2 a.m. and you need to get home, find a scooter share or something.
Yes.
Yeah, or ask
They
a
should put a
ride
green bike.
from a
Oh,
friend.
they
There
do
is a
have a
green
green
bike
bike.
at 9th and 9th.
Or take the green bike.
Yeah, or ask a friend for a ride.
Yeah,
'cause
that's
it's
also an
better to
option.
get home safe.
Well,
Well,
We're predicating.
depends what you've done throughout the night.
that is true.
Yeah.
That's what I'm referring to.
That is true.
Yeah.
I prefer a drunk biker to a drunk driver, but yes,
Yeah,
preferably don't bike or drive drunk, kids. That's bad.
but we got options. You can walk home drunk. You can get a ride. You can get a ride share
You get
drunk.
an Uber home
you
drunk.
You can get your friend drunk. You can go on the bus drunk as long as you don't throw up.
Well,
You
Well,
can
there's
probably.
bags for that.
There are bags
bags
for that.
Well, and I guess that's the true genius of the grid design, is if you know where you're going, straight line.
Well, the trouble with walking in a straight line, it's kind of hard when you're drunk.
It's drunk people don't do that. But this is a perfect example of why options are so good and so important. Like, say you are drunk off your arse at a bar at 2 a.m.
In
and
Salt Lake.
In
Yeah,
Salt Lake City?
in Salt Lake
Oh,
City.
come on.
And you're
There's
only-
like 2 things open that late.
This is the hypothetical.
Okay.
And your only way home is your personal automobile, which you drove there. And it is like obscenely unsafe to get behind the wheel of that. You are putting so many lives at risk by doing such a
Especially
thing.
your own.
Well, especially the people walking.
Well, they aren't people. They're not in a car.
Ah.
Haven't you read the brilliant article in the New York Times, How Are You American If You Don't Drive?
My bad. But if you can provide so much as like half-hour all-night bus service, these people suddenly have a safe and relatively convenient way to get home without killing tens of other people.
Yeah, this reminds me of an episode of House MD where he gets super drunk and then Dr. Wilson's girlfriend comes and picks him up, but he takes the bus and she gets on the bus. But he takes the bus because he's drunk.
Brilliant.
And it's late at night, but it's still running. Novel concept in Salt Lake City.
Well, they think if they have it run, then that will encourage bad behavior.
Yes, sorry. I'm going to start using heroin because there are safe needle disposal sites.
I'm going to start getting drunk every night because I can take the bus home.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
I would
that's
think
not.
I would think that not having night bus service encourages people to drive drunk,
Well,
Yes, it does.
which is a fact.
Yeah. Well, and everyone would be more reckless in general, probably, in getting home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
Well, I see, because I have occasionally with Kyle ridden a bike pretty late at night, and we see people walking home because they can't drive, and they're just walking because there's no good bus service.
So good for them not getting behind the wheel.
But also,
They should have bus service.
yeah,
Yeah. Maybe one day.
maybe one day we'll have a 24/7 route.
Yeah. So hear this, state legislature. If you want less people to die on the roads, give them other options than driving.
Huh.
So we don't get the riskiest drivers on the roads.
Yes. So, yeah. If a hub is not placed in a destination, city's got to work real quick and intends to develop the area around a mobility hub into a proper neighborhood center. Because here's the thing with the habits of how people move around. Like, there was this guy, a transportation engineer in Portland, who sort of did a typology of how people move. So, there are the 40% of people who can't drive. There are the 5% of people who don't want to drive, and there are the 30 to 35% of people who do it because they're used to it. That is the target audience, and you have to, if you're going to provide the 35 with alternate options, you need to get that ingrained into their neighborhood and to their habits as quickly as possible, which is why you don't build an apartment in the suburbs without putting a bus line to it, because otherwise people are going to drive, and once you're in the habit of driving, you're going to keep doing that. Whereas, if there is a bus station right in front of your apartment, you might take the bus one day, and you'll get in the habit of doing that instead. So, building things, places where there is good mobility options, and also providing mobility options to places that are good is very crucial for building good habits in people.
So believe it or not, if you have options to use different modes of transportation, then people might try those options.
What a whack idea.
Whereas if those options don't exist, then it's
Or they suck.
Yeah, then it's pretty much impossible to try them, even if you want to.
Ahem, West Valley bus grid, ahem.
Poor West Valley.
I know, they get completely screwed over by everything, man.
Literally.
Especially the legislature. And also everyone thinks they're like a den of crime and iniquity, and it's really not.
It's quite nice over there.
It's fine.
Yeah.
I feel bad about the inland port.
Yeah. Other things that you could do to make a neighborhood hub even better.
And this is just our easy, fast
dream wish
things.
list.
Yeah, easy, fast things wish list. So cities, take note and do these tomorrow.
Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is good, actually, and people tend to linger places where there's free Wi-Fi.
People linger in coffee shops. What if you have Wi-Fi coverage of your whole little neighborhood center hub thing? It's basically like a big outdoor lingering space, which is good.
Yeah, that's actually something I was really impressed by because I was in Helena last week, and you're going to get to hear all about my first ever experience with a pedestrian mall later. But one of the things I was very impressed by, their little, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 Salt Lake City block long little pedestrianized downtown area, free Wi-Fi through the whole thing. So that was quite impressive. Also, a good thing to have in these places is public art. Because, one, there are a lot of unemployed artists who would sure like a job, and B...
It's pretty.
It's pretty, and it makes the place nice. Like, that's a good thing about Ogden's downtown, is that they have these, like, painted horses all over the place that are really neat, and you kind of almost want to go on a scavenger hunt to look at all of them.
Yet again, encouraging people to go to your cool place. And public art is also a great retrofit. Take, for example, South Salt Lake City's Mural Fest, where they got a bunch of local artists to paint murals on what were otherwise blank brick or concrete walls.
And they look really nice.
They look really nice. They're almost a thing to go admire in and of themselves.
I know people that have gone and seeked them out just for fun.
Good.
Yeah.
But that's a great way to retrofit some old, dilapidated, dystopian stuff into pretty art.
You mean not like along Utopia Avenue?
Dystopia Avenue.
Dystopia Avenue.
The only thing utopian about Utopia Avenue is the mural.
art. Yeah.
I don't think I've been down Utopia Avenue.
Oh, we'll have to take you sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
Well, and then the last thing, libraries.
Yeah, just there is a such thing as book deserts, and putting just like a little baby library branch even at like your mobility hub
Please.
is such a good idea because it allows everyone to access it super easy.
Which is really important.
'Cause
Reading is
education
good.
is power and all those things that they
Yeah.
tell you in public or school in general, I suppose.
They're also just great public spaces that add to the rest of your great public space that you're building.
Yeah.
And they can be a part of the area that you're in, like the Sprague Branch and Sugar House.
Yes.
How they
That
have
is exactly
hidden
what I'm
sugar
talking
beets
about.
all throughout the architecture, since they had to retrofit it because of the flood.
Yes.
I love that.
It's lovely. Yeah, and so we're also going to link, like, there's this really good little, like, 3 or 4 page graphic thing, and that's going to be linked, like, immediately down in the description because it is exactly what we were talking about here, and it's really brilliant and beautiful.
Ooh.
Are you looking at it now?
Cool. I
Yeah.
just saw the before and
Yeah,
after.
look at this thing. It's beautiful. We got, like, just a regular road. Looks kind of Chicago-y. There's an L train there. There's a bus stop, and there's a bench, and there's, you know, standard zebra crosswalks. But then
that,
you get...
that alone, by Western U.S. standards, is actually pretty good.
Yes, it is. But then you go down to the second image, and suddenly you've activated the corner. You got a bus route under the L train. You got, like, bus lanes and bike lanes and a park and retail and residential. There's a pharmacy. Yeah, it's
a place. It's no longer just a sidewalk to walk on. There's a destination. There's several destinations.
Yes,
Yeah.
very true. So...
That's beautiful.
I know. That's what 9th and 9th should look like. Especially the L train.
That's pretty...
It's not that far off.
aside from the L train, that's not that far off.
No, it's pretty good. I do wish that they would... SLC Moves is our Department of Transportation for the city, and they control both those roads. And my favorite thing is that the current leader of SLC Moves, his Twitter handle is @curbtraffic. So, like, they should do more to curb traffic, and ideally should be a pedestrian plaza, to be honest with you. It already has, like, the weird plaza thing there in the middle, so I don't know why it's not.
It's got like long crosswalk times.
I know, it does.
Yeah.
It's nice.
I think it's not just because those are two, like, through roads.
Also one of the only places that I feel safe to, like, bike in the road.
Yeah. It's weird.
Like,
Oh, and it has 2 15-minute buses.
it does.
Which is brilliant.
Magical in Salt Lake City.
Absolutely.
Especially since the 205 and 220 have disappeared into the ether for all eternity.
Eh.
I rode the 209 a lot today.
Oh, yeah? Where'd you
Yeah.
go?
Allergy clinic.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
Yeah. But, wow. Getting to a place via transit.
That's crazy.
I know.
Yeah.
Almost like we were talking about that. Good segue, Alex.
Even better, with mobility hubs, if you have to take transfers, getting to a place via transit and ending up in different places along the way.
Mm-hmm. We talked about this, Alex and I, on CityCast a while back, is that one of the cool things about public transportation is that you notice a lot more stuff. Like,
Yes.
when you're just going by on the bus, you're like, instead of, like, hyper-fixating on the road or whatever, you're like, oh, hey, look, that's a neat shop or a neat coffee shop. I'd like to go there.
Yeah.
It's like being a kid again in the back seat, except you have money, so you can go to
I mean,
the cool
even
places.
being a kid in a back seat, though, like, I grew up in the suburbs. Alex, you're technically the only person who didn't grow up in the suburbs.
Well, I
in
did.
the suburbs.
So, like,
suburbs.
Yeah, I love my neighborhood.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, yours is nice.
Your neighborhood is very nice. It could obviously be better, but yeah, you're technically the only one who didn't grow up in the suburbs. But like growing up as a suburban child, looking out the window, what you see is like the same 14 big box stores. So like,
or just the wall on the side of the freeway and the billboards.
that more commonly, yeah. So it's really interesting as an adult to sort of sit in the proverbial back seat and just be like, wow, there's a whole lot more going on here than there was in Nampa, Idaho.
And that's the cool thing, is you can have more stuff going on here, because the more car stuff you shove through a place, the less it becomes a place.
Stuff there can be there.
Because the car stuff actively takes up land area, introduces speed, danger, and noise, and destroys the place. Whereas the more public transit, walking and biking you put through a place, the more it becomes a place, because the more people are there to spend their money and spend their time.
Slaps roof of neighborhood mobility hub. This bad boy can fit so many bike and walk in it.
Good. Good.
That's a throwback.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So it's a really good positive reinforcement loop, which is, again, why these sometimes just happen naturally.
Yeah, like, no offense to the city of Salt Lake City, but 9th and 9th was not intentional. It was purely an accident that it happened the way it did, because they didn't actively tear down the commercial district like they did with a lot of other ones and replace it with SFH. So it still exists, but now they won't permit additional commercial in it anymore. So yeah, it's not through the power of the city of Salt Lake. 9th and 9th is purely a coincidence.
Oh, and that probably ties into the neighborhood's identity. Like, that's probably one of the strongest neighborhoods, with people being proud to be from 9th and 9th.
Right.
Absolutely.
The only ones who could surpass that is probably It Which Shall Not Be Named, slightly next to the Utah Capitol building, and Sugar House are probably the two other neighborhoods with the biggest identity.
Yeah.
Oh, and probably the West Side neighborhoods.
Holiday, kind of.
Yeah.
They have their central.
Aren't they a town, though?
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but like, I guess Rose Park and
Rose
Fair
Park,
Park
yeah,
sort of
Fair
do,
Park.
but that's just because they have to band together to survive the vicissitudes of UDOT and the city. But yeah.
We wish them luck.
Wow.
But like,
much
contrast that to South Salt Lake City's quote unquote neighborhoods, which are just pretty much made up arbitrary rectangles on a map. Half of them are related to stuff UTA built here for them, and none of them really center around anything.
Like,
Well-
what neighborhoods are we talking about?
There are no neighborhoods in South Salt Lake.
Let
are
me
there?
find the map. The city has
Oh, the
published
city
one.
has published a
It's-
map. That's
Fitz
sad.
Park,
That's sad.
Let's see.
a
From,
water tower neighborhood.
I know.
Isn't that just like the freaking like?
Mill Creek Station neighborhood.
Let me see this
Oh my
nonsense.
gosh.
you know, honestly, these would make pretty good voting
They
districts.
made these up. Water Tower, 21st S Line neighborhood.
Roper Yard neighborhood, which is just the rails.
That's literally just a rail yard. There's nothing there.
Yeah, like they just sliced up their housing into
What's
rectangles.
this one here?
There's Riverfront and Jordan River neighborhoods.
Central Park.
Central Park?
That's a golf course.
That's a golf course.
That's not a park, sorry.
What?
But as you can clearly
no.
see, without the placemaking you get from mobility hubs, your neighborhood doesn't have an identity.
But suburban neighborhoods have identities. Kyle, haven't you heard of Riverfront Table Chicken River Cow?
Yeah, they have like they will name the developments.
Yeah,
like,
and it
put up a sign.
has a neighborhood identity. Totally.
It's like Rock Shower or
yeah,
like
I'm from
Clanburger.
Rockshall Creek.
It has a name but no identity.
Huh.
It's not like Liberty Wells has like its own
or
whole pizzazz.
or
to it.
like East Central. That's a pretty strong community organization as well. Also
Yeah.
a big thing. Ballpark.
Yeah.
I wonder where they got their name
Like
from.
like a lot of
Well,
this.
maybe they named the ballpark after it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Federal Heights is
Yeah.
named after because that's where used to be like a fort and stuff there.
Yeah, like a lot of the Salt Lake City neighborhoods are pretty fuzzily defined, like there's this area and we just put a name on it. But they're defined because those areas are places with unique identities and things in them.
It seems like Salt Lake has a framework. We just need to try harder.
Well, Salt Lake has it because it's old.
If you were to we're not entirely resting on our laurels here. I mean, to be fair, there has been a lot of good placemaking done in Sugar House recently.
Absolutely.
So, the trouble is that they need to, instead of just being like, well, we're going to have downtown and the Granary and Sugar House be our special development districts. No, do it everywhere, and it becomes like every part of the city becomes a unique place.
Like, oh my gosh. Not everything has to be as big and tall and busy as downtown Sugar House is. That's one, well, maybe it should be, but that's one thing. And then 9th and 9th is another thing. It's smaller, it's slower, it's not as tall.
I just unlocked one of my early childhood memories where they closed Highland Drive in Sugar House and had a whole street festival there.
Oh, that sounds
nice. And they used to have a road, the Sugar House Monument?
Yeah.
They used to have a road there instead of the whole walking
plaza.
area.
Yeah.
Jeez, I can't believe they were able to shut it.
Well, it was because they framed it as part of their fancy Sugar House development.
Yeah, but that was before any of the new development.
Really?
Yeah, that was when the Whole Foods was still a Wild Oats.
Connor, you're banished from rolling your chair.
Ah, fine. I like rolling my chair.
You're banished from rolling your chair. Anyways, continue, Alex.
Well, that's pretty much what I had to say.
Yeah, so there's a ton of neighborhoods that you could do this sort of thing in, and yeah, we need to be doing it all of them because, for one thing, just for environmentalism reasons, Salt Lake City period needs to absorb the majority of future growth in the valley. Otherwise, we are going to run out of water because you cannot do suburban development in a desert because it sucks up way more water. Salt Lake City uses literally 3 times less water per resident than places like Draper, Harriman, Murray, Provo, whatever.
And Salt Lake City's not even that good.
No.
Well,
so, yeah.
I know. One day I'm going to write an episode about environmentalism and public transit.
Yes,
Because I'm taking an environmental writing class.
We need to do an in-depth dive on just how good transit and biking and walking are for the environment.
The thesis of it is pretty much density equals better for the environment.
And you have to have transit, walking, and biking to sustain density because you can't do it with cars.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And, I don't know, maybe ship stuff on trains.
Yes, please.
Electric trains, nationalize the railroads, 400-mile-an-hour Amtrak train from Chicago to L.A. Oh.
200-mile-an-hour freight trains be like.
Yeah, why not? Why not? Why wouldn't you build a quad-tracked main line that's high speed and then you can run freight really fast?
If you run freight and passenger, why not run them both fast? Actually, it's because energy efficiency.
Big brain. Electricity good, actually. Oh, another good place that's been sort of urban redeveloped is around Pioneer Park, because that used to be a very much it was like the Granary is today, except it used to not be.
I always wondered, because when you're walking from Salt Lake Central going into the city, it a little bit before Pioneer Park, it stops being sketch and run down, and it starts being a place I'm more comfortable in and that has more things happening in it.
Right, 3rd South especially, next to Pioneer Park is a really brilliant activated urban block. There's a ton of mixed use, there's markets and restaurants, and I don't think there's a bar, but close enough.
Yeah, no, that's a really cool area, the old warehouses.
I know, that's one of my favorite places in the city.
Cool.
Yeah.
Would you look at that? You can do development in small suburban neighborhood centers, in big sort of suburban, sort of not centers like Sugar House,
Hiss.
And in actual downtown.
You are ruining the character of the neighborhood.
You're making the character of the neighborhood.
So, I think that's all for non-Patreon content today. Yeah, we didn't even do the last thing.
Oh, what's the last thing?
Accessibility. That's actually the most important thing.
So, in the process of doing all this placemaking and building these mobility hubs, it's important for them to be accessible.
Yeah,
that doesn't just mean 2 ADA ramps. That means accessible to everyone.
Right. So that means you need wayfinding, Very important. We're going to have an episode about that soon. But wayfinding, you need clear signage. You should have like neighborhood maps and walking things and stuff like that. You should also have like real-time arrival screens for your buses and such things so that like when people show up to the little mini hub, they can be like, oh, okay, well, I need to go east. There's a 9 coming in 5 minutes going east. How convenient.
Which is great and removes barriers to using those bus routes.
Right, and it also means that if you get there early, you're like, there's 10 minutes till the bus 9 going east gets here. I'm going to go get a coffee real quick.
Or I'm going to go window shop around the block.
Yeah.
And then another important thing is good bus stops and places to wait. So maybe a bit of shade.
Trees, nice shelters.
Maybe a place to sit, please.
Yeah, that'd be real nice.
Yes, actual benches.
Yeah.
But there's no reason your bus stop can't feel like a place, too, and not just like an abandoned shack on the side of the road.
Sure, like a bus stop should be like a great hangout place.
And feel free to do some public art on the bus shelter.
Yeah, I don't mind graffiti that much as long as it's good.
Oh.
Public art, sanctioned graffiti.
Yeah, it is basically. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the people who do murals like that are also graffiti artists. So.
All right.
Yeah, and then also road diets because old people, young people, all people in between people need to be able to walk across the street safely, and that is a big deal for accessibility.
When you are building a central mobility hub, it should be a place designed first and foremost for people.
And then for bikes, and then for transit, and then for rideshare, and then for the personal automobile.
So any motor vehicles you're letting through are guests, and they are not to inconvenience the pedestrians, they are not to move excessively fast, and they are not to arrive in high traffic volumes.
There are rules for them.
That sounds so nice.
I know.
That sounds like the dream.
And by rules, we don't mean a sign that says speed limit 15 and 2 speed bumps.
PLZ be nice, ooh.
Yes. We mean actual road diets, like make the road narrow, use pavers where appropriate, put in greenery, make it not straight as an arrow.
Yes.
Use signaling or the lack thereof, very tactfully.
Indeed. So, when you put all this stuff together, you create a neighborhood center that makes it easy, convenient, and fun to use transit.
Or walking, or biking.
Correct. And can help to get people out of their cars. You also help build a neighborhood and make it a place. And all these things are good and can further change behaviors.
Yes.
All good things.
All good things. So, that is the episode for today.
Can I apologize for having the plague and then going to England?
Oh, yeah, you can do that, too.
Okay. Before we go, I'd just like to say I'm sorry about the plague and going to England. That's why we haven't had an episode out in a while.
Yeah, by the time everybody sees this, it's going to be about 21 days since our last episode. So, yeah, sorry about that. But that is the episode today. That is the episode today. Please That is the episode today. Please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and follow and leave us a rating on iTunes or Spotify. If you like this episode, please make sure to check out our other episodes or maybe even consider becoming a Patreon. Thank you so much to all of our patrons, especially those in Frontrunner tier, Curtis Herring, Mike Christensen, and Phobos2390. Thank you also to all of our other patrons, including Brian Smith, Jacob Whitecotton, Ben Boosap, DJ Will Watkins, hi Will, and Ethan McDonald. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
I think that's it for non-Patreon content.